I was just muted. Of course, I was just muted. Make sure in the chat everything looks proper. Welcome to Goat Talk. Normally on Goat Talk we'll have 2 people, but tonight I'm just going to quickly go over some of the articles that we spoke about previously, but unfortunately we didn't record, which is my fault. But let me know in the chat I want to make sure that that is where it's supposed to be. Here on Goat Talk, our objective is to arm you with information. That way, you can live your life based on what you think, not based on what you're told. And there's a lot of funny stuff going on right now. The world is falling apart. The world is currently falling apart. Yeah, everything is completely fucked up. Yep, everything's completely backwards. People know that they're discriminated against because of their gender, but then they also don't have a gender, right? That doesn't make sense to me either. People will argue online about a conspiracy theory while we're in a proxy war with a nuclear power. That's kind of where we are today. So a lot of stuff to talk about. China sending warplanes over to Taiwan. We have a bunch of immigrants from over the southern border were shipped to Washington, D.C. to Kamala Harris's house. I need to make sure this is live. I must make sure. I believe we are. I believe everything should be good. Yep, it looks like it is. Okay, good. Good. Nope, looks like they were good. Excellent. So as I was saying, that's kind of what we do here on Go Talk, and we're going to be talking about a lot. I want to start with a video here from Boris Johnson, here from Nicola3 on Twitter. Boris Johnson confirms microchips and nanobots and New World Order. Now, one thing I do want to say about this is I do not know the context of what's happening with Boris Johnson. I don't really know if this is parody or if this is something that he's saying he promotes. However, we do know that BJ is a part of the WEF, and we know exactly what they promote. We know exactly what they want you to own and how they want you to feel.
And there are today people who are still actually anti-science. A whole movement called the anti-vaxxers, who refuse to acknowledge the evidence that vaccinations have eradicated smallpox, and who by their prejudices are actually endangering the very children they want to protect.
Boris Johnson just said that anti-vaxxers believe, and this is true. See, this is genius. This is how you gaslight and demonize a group of people by saying, for example, anti-vaxxers deny that polio helped children. Clearly, everyone knows that, okay? But they'll use that same logic and they will appropriate that to the current age and say, so with that logic, because if you agree that that's true, then by you not wanting to take the COVID vaccine, you're an anti-vaxxer. Of course, it has nothing to do with the fact that this is the first vaccine that hasn't been trial tested over 5 to 10 years. We all know it was made This isn't something that was natural. So you created a substance out of chemicals. We do not know the long-term effects. Things that we've been saying for years. We didn't bitch out whenever COVID first came. We've been saying this for years. We do not know the long-term effects. So why would I take an experimental drug of which no one knows the long-term effects? Now with the Twitter files, which we will also get into today, the new section of the Twitter files, exactly going over that, we'll be able to see that obviously it was some BS. And we're learning more and more about that every single day. So it's very funny how, they decide to go with this anti-vax narrative. And, for like Boris to say these people, because we know for the only reason why he would say that is because he's referring to people who don't want to take an experimental drug. It's ridiculous. Yeah, BJ.
Reject, and I totally reject.
He's sucking off the WEF.
Scientific pessimism. I'm profoundly
sucking off the WEF
about the ability of new technology to serve as a liberator and to remake the world. Remake the world. Remake the world.
He just used the code words. Shouts out to Chris Allen. He just used the code words in order to liberate you and remake the world.
Make the world.
Liberate you.
Technology to serve as a liberator and to remake the world.
We have technology to serve as a liberator and to remake the world. So what he just said is, I'm going to use technology to oppress you and create a new paradigm in this world moving forward. That is what he's saying.
Remake the world. Remake the world. Wondrously and benignly. Indeed, in countless respects, technology is already doing just that. Nanotechnology, I mentioned earlier. Revolutionizing medicine by designing robots a fraction of the size of a red blood cell, capable of swimming through our bodies, dispensing medicine and attacking malignant cells.
What else can that do? And how dangerous? If it's a fraction of the size of a red blood cell, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how crazy this planet is going to get, but the implications of that are frightening, to say the least. Nanotechnology, the fraction of a blood cell swimming throughout your body. How about swimming throughout the air? Especially if this is commandable, programmable technology. This could be in all of us and we would never know. This could already be in all of us. We would never even know it. Do you understand that? This is, see, the implications of this are, whoa.
Neural interface technology. Neural interface technology is producing a new generation of cochlear implants. I think of new tools that we acquired, but over which we, the human race, had the advantage, which we controlled. And that is not necessarily the case in the digital age. You may keep your secrets from your friends, from your parents, your children, your doctor, even your personal trainer. But it takes real effort to conceal your thoughts from Google, from Google, from Google. And if that is true today, in future, there may be nowhere to hide. In future, there may be nowhere to hide. Nowhere to hide. Nowhere to hide. Nowhere to hide. Smart cities will pullulate with sensors, all joined together by the Internet of Things. Bollards communing invisibly with laptops.
Smart cities.
But this technology could also be used.
This is the type of shit that, this is Black Mirror. This is the type of shit that we used to talk about and just like, whoa, what if this happened? That would be crazy if this happened. And, geez. Now here it is in the forefront of our lives. We're on the precipice of, we're at a crossroads. I don't know which way we're going to go. We already know how powerful technology can be. We already know really how powerful it can be. you know.
Used to keep every citizen under round-the-clock surveillance. A future Alexa will pretend to take orders.
1 second. Alexa will pretend to take orders. Yeah, this is quite
But this Alexa will be watching you, clucking her tongue and stamping her foot.
And like I said, I don't necessarily know the entire context of this, but Boris Johnson was the Prime Minister of England. That's like the President of England. That's akin to the monarch in its own way. Winston Churchill was the Prime Minister of England. So a prime minister talking about that there will be smart cities, that the stoplights and the sidewalks communicate with each other. This is a total surveillance world. This is the official prison planet. If this happens, this will officially become a prison planet. And I actually don't think that surveillance inherently is a negative thing. But in this case, it'll be used like everything else, nefariously, maliciously. What else would you expect? So that's it for Boris Johnson. Let me know what you guys think about that, because that is definitely some interesting stuff. Now, let's get into some of the funnier stuff, right? We have Kamala Harris here. Okay, Washington, D.C. Bus of migrants dropped off outside VP Kamala Harris's home. Greg Abbott, the governor, has also bused migrants from Texas to other Democratic-controlled cities of Chicago and Philadelphia. Why would they be doing that? Of course, people are going to talk shit. Why would Texas do that? They're so bad. Well, how about we're housing a ton of people already? I live here. It is crowded. It is overcrowded. We can't handle it. Y'all want them here. Y'all want them to come over here and vote for y'all. That's why you'll force. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be over here. That is not the point of my argument. But they specifically keep an open border policy. So eventually it's going to get too full here. They could come to your house. They kicking it with you. 3 buses carrying migrants from Texas arrived in Washington, D.C. late Saturday evening, including one which dropped off its passengers near the home of Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, this says near the home of Vice President Kamala Harris, which means it's likely that this headline is sensationalized. This is Fox News, after all. So this is probably a sensationalized headline, and they were probably dropped off within 15 minutes of Kamala Harris's home. Therefore, they're saying it's near the home of the vice president. If they really showed up at Kamala Harris's doorstep, believe me, this would have been a lot larger news, or wouldn't be in the news at all. The U.S. Naval Observatory is the official residence of the vice president of the United States, and the Christmas Eve drop-off is the latest of several instances in which Texas Governor Greg Abbott has bused migrants to Washington, D.C. The migrants were then helped by the Migrant Solidarity Mutual Aid Network and taken to a local church, according to 7 News reporter Christian Flores. I love this photo. She looks so confused. She always has this glazed over look in her eye. Like she's really just trying to figure out how to just say whatever she has to say to just get out of that situation at that time. Vice President Kamala Harris in Dulles, Virginia on June 17, 2022, and migrants gathered at crossings into El Paso, Texas. Interesting juxtaposition there. Governor Abbott began sending migrants from border cities to the nation's capital in April in an effort to pressure the Biden administration to take action on immigrant enforcement and border security. This practice has been widely criticized. In a letter Abbott sent to President Biden on Tuesday, the Texas governor cited freezing temperatures in cities like El Paso as his reason to transport the migrants, as migrant housing facilities are already at capacity and have been forced to release people outside onto the streets. Now, right now in Texas, even though it's a lot better today than it has been, it's been cold as shit, okay? This polar vortex, this snowstorm, this ice storm, it has affected us immensely. And a lot of people here, a lot of Hispanic people, are outside all of the time. I'm not kidding you. I can ride up to Home Depot right now and I can spot 30 or 40 Hispanic people who are just outside, like just looking for some work. When it gets cold, if they don't have a home, they have to go to a shelter or somewhere that allows them to be. Places get filled up like that, bruh. We don't get cold here. We're not built for that. So yeah, we had to put y'all in a warm, you know what I'm saying, in a warm plane, in a warm bus, and get y'all somewhere else. That's all. And I don't think that is anything wrong with that, to be honest with you. I really would not say that there's anything wrong with that. Goddamn shirt coming undone. I'm getting hyphy. Right? But, you know, this is beyond ridiculous. Greg Abbott says, your policies will leave many people in the bitter, dangerous cold as the polar vortex moves into Texas. Texas has borne a lopsided burden caused by your open border policies. Now, the GOP really should like step up and do something instead of just being little bitches like you have been for the past several years. You know, the Republican Party, what it's founded on, I agree with. And I made that decision. I was lucky enough to attend a military academy where I learned truly the difference between the parties and what they stand for and what they're rooted in. And as someone who generally leans more, especially fiscally conservative, you know, I'm ashamed that what these idiots in the GOP have done. But am I actually ashamed? No, because just like George Carlin said, it's a big club and you ain't in it. So keep that shit in mind. The third and final bus of migrants, the night of migrant buses up to D.C. from Texas, arriving with Migrant Solidarity Mutual Aid Network, taking them into a church. Wow. Incredible. Ridiculous. But either way, this is ridiculous. I think that it is. It really is a terrible crisis in terms of the border for a multitude, a variety, a plethora, whatever adjective you want to use. For many reasons, is dangerous. One, first and foremost, are we not aware that China is smuggling a ton of fentanyl into the United States over the border? Whenever people are saying close the border, we're not talking about regular Juan and regular Julio and regular Maria who just live in Mexico City, who it just sucks for them, they're in poverty, and they just want to come over here, work, and live a normal, decent life. We're not talking about that. Do you realize there are drug cartels from other countries, not even Mexico, from other companies, European countries, that they can't fly over here because they're going to get checked, but they can fly into Mexico, no problem. They just cut off the Mexican government a little bit of money. They fly in there, they smuggle whatever they want. Are you kidding me? Of course. Who knows? They could be from Istanbul. Who the fuck knows? They come from wherever because it's an easy way to get over here. Who knows who has infiltrated our country from this open fucking border on the south? It is mind-blowing that we've just allowed this. No other country would do this. And they do this for votes and for political gain. Politicians don't give a shit about the reality of Americans. They care about the Americans' perception of reality. I'm going to say it again. Politicians don't care about the reality of their constituents. They care about the perception of their constituents' reality. Oof. This terrible crisis for border communities in Texas is a catastrophe of your own making, he wrote. The need to address the crisis is not the job of a border state like Texas. Instead, the U.S. Constitution dictates that it is your job, Mr. President, to defend the borders of our country, regulate our nation's immigration, and manage those who seek refuge here. And he's precisely right. It's this asshole's job. Look at this. Look at this. Y'all elected this guy to be the president right now. And y'all make fun of Greg Abbott over here, bro. Oh, man, fuck you. I am happy with Greg Abbott as a governor. I would much rather have, with all the bad and good things that come with being ruled by someone that is not yourself, I'll say I'll prefer someone like Greg or Ron DeSantis over somebody like Joe Biden here. This man can barely open his eyes, man. But, Kamala, Cammy. Listen, Cammy, you have all these immigrants at your house. They can all use a job on your campaign. Why don't you give them all a job? I know you have plenty of money, so they can have a nice, cozy job, and then maybe they can, censor somebody, Why don't you give them one of these shadow banning jobs? Because, they're high in demand. And y'all are going to have to do it a lot more because Twitter is actually letting us say what we want now. So y'all are going to have to hire, you're going to have to teach all them English real quick, or maybe they can just handle all the Spanish misinformation because I don't know what else y'all want. In other news, we have China. Listen, excuse me. Fake news. It's fake news. Okay, it's fake news. Fox News. Sometimes it's fake news. China sends 71 warplanes, 7 ships towards Taiwan in 24 hours. Now, as you continue to read in this article, you will find that, they've been doing this. But, this is beginning to make news. Nishidake. This is beginning to make news for several reasons. One, because war news is lucrative. War news gets clicks. If they put that China is sending warplanes, you're going to likely click on the article. And they run thousands of stories a day at Fox News, or hundreds of stories. I might be using hyperbole saying thousands, but hundreds of stories minimum. And these stories likely get a lot of clicks because this word right here gets you clicks. It says among the planes China sent towards Taiwan, there were 18 J-16 fighter jets, 11 J-1 fighters, and 16 Su-30 fighters and drones. Hey, Nancy Pelosi. Hi, Nancy Pelosi. Good morning. Sunday morning. Good morning. Why don't you fly over to Taiwan and strap up? And why don't you lead the battalion against China? Because you really want to defend Taiwan, right? I mean, I heard you say it. I heard you say that you wanted to defend Taiwan, right? I know I just spelled your name wrong, but you just visited over there, right? You're setting a new status quo for the U.S. Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. A Taiwan perspective is at stake. Key moments. Now her gambit backfired. Yeah. House Speaker in defiance of China. Why don't you get your ass over there and why don't you come over here when you have a 4,000 page omnibus bill that has God knows what in it between funding for the next pandemic and funding for gender studies in the Middle East, whatever the fuck that means, whoever's getting that money, right? Why don't you send a little bit over this way? Because I don't know what the hell y'all are using it for, honestly. You know, that's what you're into. We're doing all that type of stuff. No, why don't you go over to Taiwan, put on the bulletproof vest? Why don't you lead the battalion? Because why don't you do something? Because you definitely don't come over here when there's a 4,000 page omnibus bill and make sure that everybody's there and make sure that everybody read the bill. You definitely don't do that. The only people I know who read the bill is Ron Paul, freaking Thomas Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene. These people read it. You know, I digress. China's military sent 71 planes and 7 ships toward Taiwan in a 24-hour display of force directed at the self-ruled island. Taiwan's defense ministry said Monday after China expressed anger at Taiwan-related provisions in a U.S. annual defense spending bill. So the context is this. Taiwan is obviously right next to China, and it was a part of China for a very long time. The Taiwanese did, well, and I don't know, I'm not really Taiwanese, but the story goes that the Taiwanese wanted independence from China. The U.S. provided them with what they needed to win that independence, and the U.S. is stationed over there providing them democracy. Really, we're right next to China. We're right on China's borders with military. That's really what it is. So Taiwan is over there, and China wants Taiwan back. The same way that Russia is doing what they're doing in Ukraine, China wants to do that with Taiwan. So they're sending military planes over here. They're likely getting ready. They're scoping out everything. They're looking at tactical advantages, at supply chains. They're looking at artillery supply. They're looking at all these different statistical and tactical advantages and getting ready to make a quick and efficient strikes, probably so that the U.S. can't react. Probably about to do some shit like that, right? That would make a lot of sense considering we're over here trying to figure out what's a man and what's a woman. And before you try to misgender me or try to call me out for being a like bigot, I identify as a transgender black fucking genderless gender woman black. And I identify as oppressed. So because of that, if you say that to me, that is bigotry and you're racist. You're a racist bigot transphobe. So I suggest you check your privilege, you cis human being. You know, if you want to come for me and call me a transphobe. China's military harassment of Taiwan, which it claims its own territory, has intensified in recent years, and the Communist Party's People's Liberation Army has sent planes or ships towards the island on a near daily basis. Y'all been sending ships over here. The CCP has sent planes or ships towards the island on a near daily basis. Between 6 a.m. and 6 between for 24 hours. 47 Chinese planes crossed the median of the Taiwan Strait, an unofficial boundary once tactically accepted by both sides, according to Taiwan's Ministry of Natural Defense. I'm going to need some water. I'm thirsty because I'm damn losing my damn. This is ridiculous. It's funny, every time I see the word ministry, I just think the Ministry of Magic. Taiwan scrambles jets, readies missile defenses as Chinese military vessels near island. Maybe China's just kind of going over there and just like testing it and seeing how they are. Now, this is an undated file photo released by the Taiwan Ministry of Defense. Okay, this could just be a picture of a plane. We really don't know, but this is what they're saying. Among the planes China sent towards Taiwan were 18 J-16 fighter jets, 11 J-1 fighters, 6 Su-30 fighters, and drones. China estimated, blah, blah, blah. Taiwan said it monitored the Chinese moves through its land-based missile systems, as well as its own Navy vessels. They're over here staging military exercises. They're saber rattling is what they're doing. This is a firm response to the current U.S.-Taiwan escalation provocation, says Shi Yi, the spokesman for the PLA's Eastern Theater and Command. A statement on Sunday night. It announced that the PLA was holding a joint combat patrols and joint strike drills in the waters around Taiwan. She was referring to the U.S. defense spending bill, which China calls a strategic challenge, and it is, by providing a large amount of funding and a strategic defense bill, which is really a strategic weaponization bill to Taiwan. That's right next to China. China sees that as you're trying to, by proxy, fuck with us by using Taiwan. That's what they're saying. With regard to the Indo-Pacific region, the legislation authorizes increased security operation with Taiwan and requires expanded cooperation with India on emerging defense technologies, readiness, and logistics. What that means is emerging defense technologies is new war weapons. So they're required to cooperate with India and Taiwan to make more weapons, readiness, and logistics. China looks to outflank U.S. in Africa as Somalia faces... whatever. In Washington, an official of the White House National Security Council said China's military activity near Taiwan was destabilizing, risks miscalculations, and undermines religious peace and stability. The official, who was not authorized to be identified, and commented on the condition of the anonymity. The United States has an abiding interest in peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. We'll continue to assist Taiwan in maintaining a self-sufficient defense and capability in line with our long-standing commitments and consistent with our one China policy. Look, this is what you need to know. If war breaks out here, your money doesn't matter, your status doesn't matter, none of all that bullshit falls to the wayside. All the things you think, all your hopes and your dreams, and in our illusion that we live in this country, where we don't do any of the things humans are supposed to do to make a society at large. We don't do it in general anymore. Now it's becoming the exception and not the rule. Well, it's becoming the commonality. That's a better way to say that. In a place like this, where the world is falling apart and society is utterly failing itself, it's so important to know that if some shit breaks out here, you better get with, you better find a group of people you trust. You better weapon up and you better get ready. Because that's two countries on our ass. We're fighting two proxy wars. What's a proxy war? A proxy war is when you fight a war not directly using your own military. So if I say, hey, France, fuck you, I have a problem with you, and France says, fuck you, I have a problem with you. Well, I can send my military to go invade France, or they can send France people to come invade America, or we can say, well, guess what? I'm gonna meet you in Spain and I'm gonna kick your ass. But then if we say, well, I don't wanna look like the bad guy, so instead I'm gonna pay some Spain guys to go beat up the France guys. That's a proxy war. You're just paying somebody else off to fight the war you want to fight, so you can look like you're not the bad guy. You can look like your hands are clean. Oh, I'm just giving them supplies. I'm not really into it. Yeah, shut the fuck up. Fuck you. Now, China's military has often used large military exercises as a demonstration of force in response to U.S. government actions in support of Taiwan. It conducted large live-fire military exercises in August in response to U.S. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. Why don't you, Nancy Pelosi, good morning, Sunday morning, why don't you, the Orthodox Jewish Rabbi Bill Clinton, and then you, Hillary Clinton, good old Hillary Clinton. Why don't we get all y'all over there? Y'all go to Taiwan. Y'all arm up. Y'all squad up. Y'all lead the battalion. Y'all go do it. Because we don't want nothing to do with that. Okay? We don't want nothing to do with that. What about the Taiwan people? China has a republic and they have communism. We should not be in Taiwan. If we weren't fucking with Taiwan, we would not have any conflict with China for that. But motherfuckers like Nancy Pelosi goes down here to Taiwan to saber rattle your little ass, your little 5-foot ass. You want to go down here and saber rattle in Taiwan? I would say your husband should have stopped you, but we all know what he was doing when you were gone. I know why you flew to Taiwan. We know that your husband was getting his black... We know that why, listen, I don't want to be too rude. You know what I'm saying? I'm on the internet, but fuck it. We know why Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan. She had to leave so her husband could get his back blown out by his trainer. Okay? She loves to visit Taiwan. She'll go anywhere. That's why she never be at home. She got everything else to do. She all in our Kool-Aid. Her husband getting his back blown out. She hates it. This is her revenge on the world. It is what it is. Beijing views visits from foreign governments to the island as de facto recognition of the island as an independent and challenge to China's claim of sovereignty. And you know what happens whenever you challenge a country's claim to sovereignty? The same thing that happens when you challenge a masculine man's claim of sovereignty. You're going to get a fucking fight. Every time. Challenge a man's sovereignty, you get a fight 100% of the time. Challenge a country's sovereignty, you'll get a war 100% of the time. And those of you who campaign and lobby and do everything in your power to continue these forever wars, fuck you. And that's it on that. That's it on that. Last, we have these Twitter files. We have more Twitter files. How Twitter rigged the COVID debate. This is beyond important. I will never forget the way that I was treated and the way that millions of people were treated simply for having an opinion and an honest opinion on the vid, on the Rona, right? And we saw in real time doctors who before 2020 were great established doctors. They followed the science, right? No one ever had a question. Until they questioned the Rona, then they were disbarred, discredited, everything. They were basically excommunicated and ostracized in their own community for doing their job and telling the truth. It is despicable that this happened. And it is despicable that in this matrix, so many of you formed and evolved into Agent Smith and just barked at us the matrix's command without allowing your fellow man, who you have much more in common with than Nancy Pelosi, the ability and the allowance and the grace to have their own opinion, own life, own perspective in their reality. I'll say it again. These politicians don't give a fuck about the reality of their constituents. They only care about the perspective and the perception of the reality of their constituents. They only care about the perception of their constituents' reality. They want their constituents to perceive that what they're saying is true. and what they're saying is valid, and they want them to perceive that they're there for them and that they'll do something to change their lives if they put them in power. That's the perception they want. Do they care about the real reality? Absolutely not. They never will. They never have. How could y'all allow someone who said, how could y'all allow a white man to say, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black, to a black man? And y'all thought that was cool. Y'all thought that was cool. Let's take a look at some of these Twitter files. So far, the Twitter files have focused on the evidence of Twitter's secret blacklists. However, the company functioned as a kind of subsidiary to the FBI, another three-letter agency, and how execs rewrote the platform's rules to accommodate their own political desires. What we have yet to cover is the Rona, the rid, the vid, the shit, the crown, COVID. And the crown. Isn't that interesting that that's what it was called? The crown. It was about a mental battle, honestly. Fascinating. This reporting for the Free Press is one piece of that important story. Internal files at Twitter that I viewed, blah, blah, blah. The Trump and Biden administration directly pressed Twitter executives to moderate the platform's pandemic content according to their wishes. At the onset of the pandemic, according to meeting notes, the Trump administration was especially concerned about the panic buying. They came looking for help from the tech companies to combat misinformation about runs on grocery stores. We also know now that Trump is also doing this shit. He's not doing it for as nefarious reasons, but that nigga was doing that shit too, so fuck that. We need somebody who is a free leader, who wants to be a leader of the free world, not a leader of of Comerica. And you said conspiracies about 5G cell towers. They were muting and censoring the natural flow of conversation and the evolution of humanity. It wasn't just Twitter. The meetings with the Trump White House were also attended by Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and others. But when the Biden administration took over, one of their first meeting requests with Twitter executives was on COVID. The focus was on anti-vaxxer accounts, not anti-vaxxer information. Anti-vaxxer accounts. This is the United States government targeting citizens specifically based on their beliefs. There are religious people who do not believe in it. You are not allowed to do that under the Constitution. That is illegal under the Constitution. It is unacceptable. Biden. One of the first meeting requests from the Biden White House was about COVID misinformation. Per regular process, public policy took the meeting. Biden's staff focused on vaccines and high-profile anti-vaxxer accounts, including Alex Berenson. In the summer of 2021, President Biden said social media companies were killing people for allowing vaccine misinformation. Berenson was suspended hours after Biden's comments and kicked off the platform the following month. Berenson sued and settled with Twitter in the legal process. Twitter was compelled to release certain internal communications, which showed direct White House pressure on the company to take action on Berenson. This is a Substack showing an email. The email says, "How was the White House?" He had crossed fingers. Overall, pretty good. They had one really tough question about why Alex Berenson hasn't been kicked off from the platform. So the meeting went great. The President of the United States and his cabinet asked me why we are not censoring the free speech more of free citizens of the United States. Otherwise, their questions were pointed but fair. And mercifully, we had answers mercifully. Oh, how merciful. A December 22 summary of meetings with the White House by Lauren Culbertson, Twitter's head of U.S. public policy, adds new evidence of the White House's pressure campaign and cements that it repeatedly attempted to directly influence the platform. Culbertson wrote that the Biden team was very angry that Twitter had not been more aggressive in deplatforming multiple accounts. They wanted Twitter to censor more. The Biden team was not satisfied with Twitter's enforcement approach, as they wanted Twitter to do more and deplatform several accounts. Say it again. The Biden team wasn't satisfied. They wanted Twitter to deplatform more accounts, and because of the dissatisfaction, we were asked to join several other calls. They were very angry in nature. These people were actually livid. They were actually pissed off that these things weren't being censored. Now let me ask you a fucking question. Why do you think a government would be upset that something wasn't being censored enough? Let me tell you why. Because if you're telling lies and there's too much truth out there to back it up, you need to nip that shit in the bud immediately. You need to nip that shit in the bud. I can't be having you out there fucking up my facade. So guess what, motherfucker, on Twitter? Listen, vagina gaddy. You're going to go on there, little bitch, and you're going to make sure every anti-vaccine fucking conspiracy theorist, QAnon, rabbit hole, asshole, Trump-supporting bitch is censored and deplatformed and ostracized. We want them in society to feel afraid to leave their home. That is what they wanted. This is the anger. I can feel the visceral anger they probably had for Vagina Gad. And of course, she was fucking quaking in her boots. She already knows that she's been doing shadow banning and illegal shit. She has to do what they say. Now she's in cahoots with them. She can't go back now and fucking suddenly be a patriot. She's a scared little bitch. Of course she's gonna do what she's doing. Twitter executives did not fully capitulate to the Biden's team's wishes. An extensive review of the internal communications at the company revealed employees often debating moderation cases in great detail and with more care than was shown by the government towards free speech. They're telling you that not Twitter executives, Twitter employees were having debates on this moderation because these people are normal, decent people. And they're having debates on this moderation like, you know, is this really right? And there's some motherfucking leftists over here like, yeah, we have to. And then someone comments and it's like, look, I get all that, but is it seriously right to deplatform them? They have a right to their opinion. This is a free speech public forum. This is what we do here. The government was not on none of that shit. They didn't have no kind of fucking debate. You know what their debate was about? How many billions are we going to send Ukraine? And when we send Ukraine these billions and billions, how much are we going to get? Like, are we doing 60-40? Are we doing 30-70? Like, and what's the kickback for the big guy again? Because I heard that percentage changed with all these new wonderful packages that we're sending over there, right? The billions and billions and billions, 100 billion fucking dollars. Meanwhile, we're trillions in debt. Oh God, just don't get me started on that. This is horrible. This is the government colluding to censor you. But Twitter did suppress views, many from doctors and scientific experts that conflicted with the official positions of the White House. As a result, legitimate findings and questions that would have been expanded, the public debate went missing. I'm gonna say that again. But Twitter did suppress views, many from doctors and scientific experts that conflicted with the official positions of the White House. As a result, legitimate findings and questions that would have been expanded, the public debate went missing. There were 3 serious problems with Twitter's process. First, much of the content moderation was conducted by bots, of course. Second, contractors in places like the Philippines also moderated the content. They were given decision trees to aid in the process, but tasking non-experts to adjudicate tweets on complex topics like myocarditis and mask efficacy data was destined for significant error rate. So random motherfuckers in the Philippines who had nothing to do and have no expertise on the subject but were paid to do a job were deplatforming non-experts to adjudicate tweets on complex topics like myocarditis or mask efficacy data. Deplatforming real doctors because you feel like it. Third and most importantly, the buck stopped when higher level employees at Twitter who chose the inputs for the bots and decision trees and subjectively decided escalated cases and suspensions. As it is with all people and institutions, there was individual and collective bias like humans have. With the Rona, this bias bent heavily towards establishment dogmas. Inevitably, dissident yet legitimate content was labeled as misinformation, and the accounts of doctors and others were suspended both for tweeting opinions and demonstrably true information. Jeez. This is some ridiculous Black Mirror shit. This is insane. Exhibit A. Dr. Martin Kulldorff, an epidemiologist at Harvard Medical School, tweeted views at odds with U.S. public health authorities and the American left, the political affiliation of nearly the entire staff at Twitter. Say that again. Dr. Martin Kulldorff had an opinion that went against the establishment narrative and the overall political bias of the employees at Twitter, which was overwhelmingly left. Martin, so we have a honest question from an honest Twitter user, Endemic Equilibrium, awesome name, Electra Ascendant, another awesome at, asks a really honest question that any citizen that cares about their family and themselves would ask. Dr. Kulldorff, do you think younger age groups and or people who already had the virus need to be vaccinated? I'm not an anti-vaxxer. The fact you even have to say that bullshit in today's day and age. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I am vaccine hesitant about this one. It seems to be a religious mantra now that everyone must be vaccinated, and that's what y'all need to understand. If there's ever, like they should have taught you in school, if there's ever something everybody is trying to do and it's brand new, you might want to take a second. If everybody's doing something, you might just want to let them go do it for a second and take a look, right? It is a weird religious cult thing. It's very strange. No, thinking that everyone must be vaccinated is as scientifically flawed as thinking nobody should. All he's saying is that shit is extreme. It doesn't make sense everyone should be vaccinated, and it doesn't make sense no one should. Extremes don't make sense in the world of science. COVID vaccines are important for older high-risk people and their caretakers. Those with prior natural infection do not need it, nor children. Those with prior natural infection do not need it, nor children. You know, wow. Anyway, so you know, this is just very disheartening. Internal emails show an intent to action by a moderator, saying Kulldorff's tweet violated the company's COVID-19 misinformation policy, and claimed he shared false information. A moderator told Twitter that a doctor from Harvard Medical School is spreading false information. He's an epidemiologist. Fuck you! Hi team, sending a heads up that we'll take action on Dr. Martin Kulldorff, a professor of Harvard Medical School, for violating our COVID-19 misinformation policy, specifically by sharing false information regarding the efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines, which goes against CDC guidelines. CDC guidelines. The CDC guidelines. The community guidelines. The guidelines. The CDC guidelines. Shut the fuck up. But Kulldorff's statement was an expert's opinion, one which also happened to be in line with vaccine policies in numerous other countries. Go figure. Not every country is fucking stupid. Hold on a second. Damn alarm went off. Damn alarm went off. One which also happened to be in line with vaccine policies in numerous other countries. Yet it was deemed false information by the Twitter moderators merely because it differed from CDC guidelines. After Twitter took action, Kulldorff's tweet was slapped with the misleading label, and all replies and likes were shut off, throttling the tweet's ability to be seen and shared by many people, the ostensible core function of the platform. So let me explain to you the gravitas of what they've done to you. They don't care who you are now, right? They will target you specifically. say you're spreading whatever, it doesn't matter if you're an expert. They can say you're spreading misinformation and they can cancel you. What does that mean? They're trying to destroy and distort your reality. Because what they're doing is they're in real time editing the information you see and you can interact with. The most valuable resource on earth is information. And by limiting the information you see, they are limiting your reality. In real time, they are stopping and halting your evolution. Humanity cannot evolve without information, dialogue, and discourse. These are the core elements to a society which not only is good, but is strong, resilient, and can evolve and adapt. We are stuck in a paradigm. Of course we are, because we have this propaganda land like we're North Korea or something. Are you insane right now? They will actually, in real time, distort your reality, and you will allow them to do so. With words like misinformation, with words like CDC guidelines, with words like dangerous, conspiracy theorist. This is a doctor at Harvard. What does he have to gain by telling false information? Absolutely nothing. It's not a partisan issue. This is about human beings. But you wanted to weaponize it. And you did weaponize it in more ways than one, might I add. This is unprecedented and this is dangerous. That they feel like and think and inaction will show you. I don't give a shit. I'll ban you in real time because I know this shit is wrong. I don't care if it's wrong. This is the reality I'm giving to these people. Well, excuse me, some people can get my card. I don't give a fuck what the reality of my constituents are. I give a fuck about the perceived reality of my constituents. And I need them to perceive that this is the most dangerous shit ever and that I'm their only savior, so they'll vote for me in a couple of years and I can keep my little power. How about fuck you? How about fuck you? They shut off all interaction. They cut it off from the reality of the conversation. They're editing your reality in real time. This is insane. A tweet by Kelly, KGA, a self-proclaimed public health fact checker with 18K followers, was flagged as misleading and replies and likes disabled, even though it displayed the CDC's own data. What an excellent example of cherry picking. If you narrow it down to only specific months you specify, which include the largest COVID wave seen across the world, and you ignore all non-disease deaths, and you ignore cancer, heart disease, SIDS, then COVID is leading. What she's saying is, you're forcing the data to make a correlation that doesn't exist, and you know damn well it doesn't exist. Stop the lies. This whole place is falling fucking apart. It's falling apart as we speak. From the top down. You don't think it's a trickle-down effect? You don't think the fact that we're allowing ourselves to live in a false, disillusioned reality is affecting us at every level? Why the fuck do you think all these girls are walking around with BBLs and lip implants? It's a false reality. That does nothing for you. Except make somebody want to take your clothes off and smack you a couple times. That's all they want to do. That's it. We've hypersexualized the female and made the male hyperfeminine. We're making everything back. We don't know what the fuck is going on. We don't pair bond. We're not having as much kids. We're not doing the things that we have to do to keep a reality and a society going. Because we're disillusioned thinking that now is the time to reinvent the wheel for every single thing that has been working and does work. And you can look at all egalitarian societies and they always work. But whenever we have this disillusion at the top, shadow banning, conversations cannot be had, the natural discourse of humanity that would push us, the natural discourse and dialogue of humanity, which would catapult us into the next stage of our evolution, is actively hindered by those who censor and seek to destroy us. And the question is, what will you do about it? It's time that you fucking say something, because it's getting to the point that can't nobody gonna be able to say nothing. And he said that there's gonna be nanotechnology, a fraction of the size of a blood cell. And maybe when that shit is inside you, who knows what kind of chemical they can release to shut you the fuck up.